Alright everyone, this is it. The long-awaited video 3 of the trilogy of the Space Invaders game. This video we will be talking about the extra functionality that went into my game, or more specifically, mods. Now, I know you may have a lot of questions about mods, such as, what are mods? How are they implemented? Were they even necessary for my game? Those are great questions, and we will get into the answers today, right now. So first, what are mods? Mods are added settings that change either player and or enemy functionality that make the game more difficult or fun. They can be simple, like making enemies move slightly faster, or complex, like making more enemies spawn and shooting more often. You can see mods in published video games like Halo. As you can see over here, this is the skulls, or mod selection screen from Halo 4. They had some simple things, like enemies throw grenades more often and they're faster, to enemies are more confident and will charge you more often. They also had silly things, like whenever you headshot grunts, they would have this birthday celebration and have a bunch of sparkles. This personally was my favorite. Now what about my game? My Space Invaders mods was a way to increase difficulty. I had two types of mods. Player mods, which manipulated the player, mostly in bad ways, like decreasing the speed, reducing the amount of lives they have, but also in good ways, like making their laser speed increase. But the main thing that changed in my game were the enemies, whether it be how many enemies spawned, how much their speed increased, how much their laser speed increased, how many lasers they were firing, or what they even looked like. The list goes on, and honestly, I could have added hundreds and hundreds of mods, but eventually my panel ran out of room, and I had to settle with the mods that I had decided, the best mods that I decided on. As you can see here, these is my mod selection screen. So you can see there are things about like adding more enemies. I won't get into what these are. We'll have to figure it out. And this changes speed. This changes how many bullets are going, and then this is skins. Now, one thing that might be jumping out to you is, how does it even work? I had a separate J panel for mods called Mods Panel, where I put all the mods that you can see back here. This is the Mods Panel where you can see all the mods. I had action listeners for every button, so that I knew that whenever a button was clicked, I had to do three things. One, I had to change a feature in the game panel. Change a feature in the game panel which changes the game accordingly. I had to disable the button so the effect couldn't be stacked, so that the player's laser speed doesn't increase by 2 times. And I changed the button color to green to make sure that the player knew that mod was selected and that you can't select it again. When the game resets, the mods reset. So you have to go back to the mods panel at the end of the game to make new mods. And yes, you can add more than one mod at the same time. These are my two methods that make it done. This is the first method that adds the button, sets it to background, sets its bounds, sets the layout to null, sets the font, adds action listeners. Basically, if it's clicked, you set it's enabled to be false, and you set its background to be green. This is the important function, though, the action performed function. This is the game panel. You can access the game panel over here, and then based on which mod was clicked, something in the game panel is changed. Whether we set the skin type to be a different skin, we change the bullet speed, we give the enemies a speed boost, we add more enemies, or we set their angry mode. It's all good and fun to talk about mods, but how does it actually look? It's time for a demo! Hooray! So when you first load up into the game, this is the main panel. You have these 4 buttons. Let's go to mods. This is the mods screen. As you can see here, we have all our mods. Let's try first more enemies. As you can see, when we come back to the game, instead of 1 row of enemies, there are 2 rows of enemies, obviously making the game a lot more difficult. And then the game is over. As mentioned in the slides, as you can see, mods reset when the game's reset. So as there are no longer 2 rows of enemies. So in order to change mods, what you have to do is that you have to come back here and change mods here. Let's try changing the skin to be panda and making a bolt. What you can see is that the enemies will become faster and they will become everyone's favorite panda. Kung Fu Panda. They move. You see, they move a lot faster, and making the game a lot harder. Honestly, the list of possibilities that you could do is endless. You can add a mule skin, make it hard mode, add even more enemies, make it road rage so that they move much faster, and you can see the game is a lot harder. It's almost nearly impossible, seeing that the enemy only has one life and that the player and the enemies move faster. This is the added functionality. You might be asking, why was this even necessary? This was necessary because, as a player myself, I know that players hate boring mechanics and repetition. So I needed a way to add spice to my game, to make it feel more impressive and make the player want to always come back for more. This was my way of doing it. Because now you're not just playing one level, you're playing whatever level you want to, whether it be making the player slow like I just did, or giving it one life and making the impossible amounts of enemies. The world and game is yours to do from, and that was the idea behind these mods. This concludes the trilogy going into my Space Invaders game. I will be trying to post more games and more intros and stuff. And just look out for that. Bye.